What's up, my peoples? I'm so sorry about the last stream that I had to do. This is again a spontaneous stream. It is Saturday, the 5th of May. Already it's the 5th of May. That's incredible. And just going to talk a little bit about the topic at hand. I started doing the topic before, but it was blocked worldwide because I showed video. Hopefully that will not happen again. As well as the stream, I was actually cut off the internet once again. I don't know why. This is twice now. I've been doing some streams. They were pretty long streams though, and I was cut off of the internet. Feel free to chat in the chat section. Chat section is to where I'm pointing to. It's right across here. Feel free to talk up a storm. I'll check you guys out as I keep on doing these videos. So it's beautiful sunny weather as well in the Caribbean. That's just how it goes. For you guys, it's probably the end of spring, the beginning of summer, if it isn't summer already. And I'm hoping you're having a fantastic time. Everything I try to share with you guys is based on communities and bettering each other, and bettering the world we're in. Let's get into it. First of all, we're going to read from Psalms 113. I'm going to read it. Let me read really quickly. Praise the Lord, you servants of God. Praise the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. From the rising of the sun until the going down of the same, the Lord's name be praised. Now, you know, if you're a religious person, you know, or you're a Christian person, you know, ecumenical, who's generally going to church, who goes to church, not ecumenical, but you're whatever religion you are and you go to church. A lot of people use these kinds of phrases, the Lord be praised and the Lord be praised and praise be the Lord and that kind of thing, right? But I want to always give you an understanding of things. I don't just like to talk off the top of my butt, as you know. And so what's interesting about this is if you see God or the Lord as an entity, a form, a particular type of form, then this falls short. Because once you isolate God to some sort of form, you limit him. And he's not him, but you limit God. But when you can see God as the foundation of everything, and that God is more than just a form, he can attain any form, but he's more than a form. It's something that links everything together, and that everything comes from it. Then, and only then, this praise makes sense. And very importantly, I note the following phrase: from the rising of the sun until the going down of the same. That's a metaphor. That's not the literal sun we're talking about, even though that you can do that as well from day to day. It's basically saying, but the rising of the sun to going, the sun is a ball of fire, basically. Okay. And to try and put this all in perspective, a ball of fire is what supplies the energy that we receive for all life to be sustained. So the sun is a very pivotal part of our universe, and especially our solar system specifically. And that's what, because of our distance from the sun and because of the way how the earth spins with relation to the sun and its gravitational pull of the sun to the earth, etc., we have life on Earth, and life is sustained on Earth. Unlike the other planets around us, which we are not able to see signs of life, or shall I say, we don't have concrete evidence of life on Earth. Because of the distance of the Earth to the sun, it's just a perfect distance for life to be sustained on. And then that's a really awesome thing. Now, when we're looking at the rising of the sun and the going down of the sun, why I said this is a metaphor is because when you look at the sunrise, I said it's a ball of fire, right? It's a star. When it rises, or when a star rises over the horizon, that is, you get day. And as the sun or the star sets over the horizon, you get evening and night. So we get light and darkness. And there's a lot I want to talk to you about in this video concerning all of that I just mentioned. So the scripture is a context for what we're about to talk about, which has to do with Superman 1978 and Man of Steel, particularly of the DCEU. So let's get into it. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Remember, if you have anybody's viewing right now, you can go ahead and start commenting in the chat section. I'll get back to you guys. I'm just going to go into this video here, but I will keep an eye on you guys in the chat section to see what you guys have to say. It's nice to have a community, and we have a little community going on here and on Facebook. And I want to start one also in the chat sections. I also want to start one on social media in Twitter, but that's for another time and another day. Remember, you can always chat in the chat section. Just go right here, right across there in the chat section, and you can start talking away. I'll be looking forward to seeing your comments. Right now, I'm looking at the chat section. Nobody's there. So once you're not saying anything in the chat section, I'll just go back to my video on what I am doing at the present point in time. Okay, let's get into it. So let me show you what we're going to be looking at really quickly. So in front of you, you'll be seeing this right here. I'm in Photos. So that's a program on my computer. It's called Photos. And in Photos, we're looking at the similarities between Superman 1978 and Man of Steel. Particularly, we're looking at Kal-El's departure from Krypton and arrival on Earth. And everything is symbolic of something. So I'm going to get into it. So first of all, let's zoom in a little bit. And if you look here, you will see that in Superman 1978, you see Jor-El. He takes this green crystal that rises up from amidst these tubes of crystals that are there. Almost looks like an organ, kind of like this green crystal. It rises up, and Jor-El takes it in his hand, and he carries it across to where Kal-El is. Kal-El's in this little vessel, this little half of a vessel, which is actually his ship. And he takes the green crystal. I don't know if you can see this very well. It's kind of far away. Let me see if I can zoom it in a little bit more here so you can see it. Takes the crystal here in his hand, and he places the crystal in the bottom half of Kal-El's ship. Okay, it's pretty cool, huh? So he goes across, and this is the upper part of Kal-El's ship, and this is the lower part of Kal-El's ship. And what's interesting about that is there's actually a parallel to that by Jor-El in Man of Steel, where again, this time we have the formation of not a crystal, but a command key. Pretty much it rises up out of a fluid, sort of Kryptonian stuff can be fluid and solid. It's really interesting. And when the command key rises up, it goes into Jor-El's hand, and Jor-El holds it, and then he carries that command key, and he puts the command key in the bottom half, or the bottom slot of the chamber that Kal-El is in. So there's some parallels between Man of Steel there and Krypton, where you see basically the same action taken by Jor-El in both movies. And now, what is that all about? Why are we talking about it? Well, we know that the command key or the green crystal, it served as a contact between Jor-El and Kal-El. In fact, Kal-El would discover the green crystal in Superman 1978 in the barn, and then he would go on his journey to find the Fortress of Solitude. And whereas Kal-El in Man of Steel, his father would tell him about, his earthly father, that is Jonathan Kent, would tell him about the command key, which he would have in his hand. They don't know what it was. And then that would lead him on a journey, and he'd finally find the Kryptonian scout ship in which he would put the command key. And that is the link between himself and his father. Now, what's interesting is both of these Kryptonians' names end in L. And so L means Lord or God. So if you look at it, son of El is son of God. And so basically this story is the story of Horus, or the story of Jesus, where Jesus basically came to Earth. And when he came to Earth, his father sent him the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Ghost was like the command key that linked Jesus to his father. All right. And so I thought this would be very interesting for you guys to note the symbology behind it. And the fact that we have two halves of the ship, which you better see over here. So let's go here. You can see the two halves of the ship here. Let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see it. So here you have the bottom half in Superman 1978, and you have the top half here. You can see it again here, right? And here's the bottom chamber. We call this the bottom chamber. And then it's the actual ship in Man of Steel. It's the actual ship here. Let me see if I can just get this to crystallize better, because for some reason it's blurring out. Sharpen up. There you go. That's better. Okay. So now we look at it after Jarrell has put the command key into the Kryptonian chamber that Kal-El is in, or in Superman 1978, the green crystal in there. Then Jarrell goes across and he touches another crystal, sort of control crystal, and that causes the bottom half of the ship that Kal-El is in to rise. So you can see it's lower here than here. It's actually rising up. It's actually closer here than it is over here, because Jarrell is with Lara, and they stand aside to watch it rise. And then it connects together here. The bottom half and the top half connect together into one ship right here. And that's very much the same thing and the same sequence of events that happened in Man of Steel, where this time Jarrell, instead of taking a crystal and touching it, he just pushes in the command key. That causes the lower chamber to rise up in the air. As you can see, it's rise right there. And it meets the upper ship. And then it is locked into the ship right there. All right, so again, parallels between the two movies. And what I was saying to you is that that command key, or that green crystal, it really links the lower part of the Son of Man, or the Son of God, to the upper part, to God up in heaven. So what is it showing is the godly nature of Kal-El. And remember Jarrell saying in Man of Steel, he'll be a god to them. So this is a symbology for the linking of that is below with that which is above. Zack Snyder likes to do below and above, but even before that, in Superman 1978, that concept was actually there. And what's interesting about Superman 1978, if you look at the ship, the Kryptonian ship that Superman will be inside, have a look at this. So when you look at the Kryptonian ship, it's now linked together, the bottom half with the top. Here in Superman 1978, you will notice it is in the shape of a star. You notice that? It's in the shape of a star. And if you do know, again, Jesus' story, a star is born in the city of David, and the shepherd saw the star in the sky, and so did the wise men, a star. And to just go into some more detail about that, the star represents Estar, or Ishtar. Ishtar, Estar actually means star. All right, it's really a Persian name that Esther got, and or a Median name. And what's interesting is that they have Pascha, which is the Passover, and Pascha is now what is known as Easter. And what's interesting about that is Easter, or Pascha, is the death and resurrection of Christ. And truly, Christ was born as a star, not only in his first birth, but also in his second birth. A lot of people don't know about the second birth. The second birth, or the rebirth of Christ, is after he bore sins, he rose again from the dead. And so that second rebirth is really the star that we're talking about. That's the star that bore our infirmities. That's the supernova star. That's the star that sheds and spreads everything. So it's very interesting. Note also the shape of the ship. It has another second significance. And so it's really brilliant what Superman 1978 actually portrayed, biblically and otherwise. But here we see the Kryptonian ship now. It's leaving the citadel, or the building in which Jor-El is here. Again, Jor-El is the one responsible for activating it. And that is, again, El, God activates, And then here you see Jor-El and Alara observing the ship rising, and there it is rising up there. And I say, notice the shape of the ship. And this parallel is a little bit different. Lara is the one that actually launches the Kryptonian ship in Man of Steel. Very interesting twist to that story. And you see her and Jor-El there watching the ship rise out of ruins. And this is, again, very important. Krypton is about to die. And as Krypton dies, we have the birth of Kal-El, and that also coincides with Kal-El's leaving of Krypton. And all of these things, again, very biblical. We all know you have to die to live again. And then Jesus Christ died, and through his death, we had the resurrection. And it's very interesting how both ships also represent something else that's a little bit deeper. So we'll get into that in a minute. In fact, we get into it right now. So I said, note the shape of the ship. And if you look at Superman 1978, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here so you can have a look at this, because this is very interesting. I can guarantee you that. Let me zoom back out, zoom back in so I can get a sharp image. It's as sharp as I'll get it, I guess. Okay. And if you look here, the ship leaves Krypton. This is in Superman 1978. And in Man of Steel, here you see the ship about to blast through into the Phantom Zone. And it's about to leave Krypton as well. And what's interesting is right after the ship leaves Krypton, you see Krypton explode in both cases. All right. And what's interesting about the explosion of Krypton, if you look at the explosion of Krypton, it actually resembles the shape of Kal-El's ship. And I'll just remind you of the shape of Kal-El's ship. Look at that and look at the explosion of Krypton. See, these are like the big white explosions right here, and then the pink in the center. There's the pink right there, showing that Kal-El's ship literally represents the destruction of Krypton, and that's why a star is born, like a supernova. And why that's very important is because when we look to Christ, Christ represents the death and resurrection of mankind, or the death of one world and the beginning of another. All right. And what's very interesting about that is also reflected in Man of Steel. And if you look at Man of Steel here, you see Kal-El's ship leave, and then you see Krypton here. Now you see there are fissures in Krypton along certain lines. So if you look at the fissures here, you know that Krypton's going to explode, and these particles are going to burst off into halves, and you're going to have the top. And in fact, we see that. We see that Krypton, you have the top here, and then we have the bottom half here, and another bottom half here, and we have a ring around it. And surprisingly, it's also the same as the shape of the ship that we see. Here's the top half here. We have a split half here, a split half here. Here's a ring around it and a little blob down below. So actually, in both cases, both depictions actually depict, both ships depict the destruction of Krypton. Now, Zack Snyder, I believe, in my opinion, I don't know if he was going into all of this, but I think he was going with brokenness, the breaking of bread, whereas with the supernova effect that we see here with the star, we also get that similar idea that the ships represent, but in this case, in a slightly different way. So for instance, the exploding Krypton here also represents the dispersing of Christ's spirit when he died, when he broke, when his body was broken, and the dispersal of him throughout the world. But in this case, this depicts more brokenness, you see. And so this represents what is being given to the world, whereas this one is more of a supernova effect and pointing to the star, the birth and death and birth of a star, whereas this one here is depicting the brokenness or the breaking of bread that brings forth a new spirit to the world. See, without something being broken, it can't be multiplied. Take, for instance, when Jesus broke the bread and the fishes, he was able to multiply it. So here I find this one a little bit more subtle in the sense that it's saying because the world was broken, Superman was allowed to come forth and bless the earth. If Krypton did not die and it wasn't broken, it wouldn't have prompted Jor-El and Lara to push Superman off of Krypton and therefore have a Kryptonian come and influence the earth. Whereas here, this one's more about supernovas, like everything is spectacularly spreading, saying that Superman is this star that comes from this star. Though Krypton's not a star, it comes from this star, and so it gives you more of a star effect than it is telling you about brokenness. All right, so it gives you the more spectacle that it gives you the actual brokenness. And I thought this was very interesting for you guys to check out. When we look at the similarities between, again, Superman 1978, now we see Kal-El's ship pass by Saturn in both movies. Here you see in Superman 1978, there's Saturn right over there. Saturn is very distinct because it's the only planet with a ring around it, just like the particles that was around Krypton. You know, that symmetry is right there. And you can see here Kal-El's ship coming out of the Phantom Zone. And there's the ring of Saturn right there and Saturn right there. And there you see it speeding across the ring. And what's very interesting about Saturn, why Saturn? Why did they keep Saturn in both movies? Saturn is a Roman god like Jupiter. All of the planets are named after Roman or Greek mythology. So Saturn is actually the precursor for Saturday. And Saturday is the seventh day of the week. And the seventh day is known as, in Hebrew, rest day. It is the rest of God. And the rest of God is known as Shabbat or Salem or Shalem or Shalom, which is peace. And so, and just to kind of break this down so you would understand, the Jewish people, the Hebrew people used to spend the seventh day in rest and meditation on God. And they hailed it back to when Moses said that God finished his creation on the seventh day. He stopped creating anything else on the seventh day, and he rested and he called everything good, and he called that day hallowed. And that really has to do with us now, in a spiritual sense, resting from all our works, abiding in the Holy Spirit, letting God influence us in what we do, so we don't labor anymore to do anything. Now we do things because the Holy Spirit impresses us, and we move and do things. And nothing is a burden to us. Nothing is a labor to us anymore. So Saturn, Superman going by Saturn, depicts that Superman is on this mission of peace. Peace towards all men, goodwill towards all men. That's what it was said by Jesus in the scripture. Peace on earth, goodwill to all men. There's a Superman Peace on Earth comic, and Superman is a message of peace, a peace between Krypton and Earth, to bring some values to Earth that he had of Krypton, to help mankind achieve their highest ideals. This is all what Jesus is all about, which is why we take the S and we put a big S in the middle of Jesus. And of course, Jesus represents the blessed hope, which is what Superman is. And then when we look at a couple other very interesting things, first of all, in Superman 1978, we see Kal's ship pass another red star. So we saw Kal's ship earlier on pass a red star, which was Krypton's sun. And now we see it pass a second red star, which is a dwarf star. It's called a dwarf star. It's a red star. And you see Krypton, Superman's little ship here, passing the one end of the star, and then the other end of the star is passing by it. Okay. And here in Man of Steel, we see Superman approaching a yellow star. So in this case, he's approaching the yellow star. And I found that, again, Zack Snyder takes a different view to things, a little bit different to what Superman 1978's view was. In the case of the red sun, it's an old sun. An old sun is not as bright and not as powerful as the yellow sun. And in this case, Superman is passing by the red sun to say that the old is gone. I am passing by that. Whereas Superman is approaching, he's approaching a yellow star, or the sun, the yellow sun, from which you'll get all his energy, incorporating that he's approaching God. And I talked to you guys about sunrise and sunset. We saw it in the scripture. And here the sun denotes the glory of God. All right. In fact, Jesus is called the Son of God, and he becomes the Son of God twice. He becomes the Son of God through birth. He's a creation, and he becomes the Son of God, and what we call the second Adam, when he dies and he's resurrected from the dead, having borne all our sins and overcome sin. And the whole point of it is that because he is the Son of God, the ultimate Son of God, we now can be birthed sons of God, because he dispersed himself in his death to us, his spirit, that is. You know, blood and water came out of his side, blood being his humanity, he's dead, but the water belonging his spirit. Now we can have his spirit and overcome sin. So that's why we're called sons of God, because sons consume everything and they emit light. Also, as he approaches Earth, he passes by the moon. This is very important to denote the status of Superman, as well as the status of the Christ. Say, for instance, the Christ is known as the Son of God, but the moon also reflects the light of the sun, which means, therefore, he is a perfect reflection of the Father. And the Father, in this case, would have been El, and of course, Kal-El is the son of El. And so you see that Kal-El passes the moon, which is a reflection of the sun, and then he goes to Earth, which shows that he's the Son of Man. So you see that Kal-El is three things. He is one. He is from the house of El, so he's a son of God. That is the moon. He approaches the sun, which means he's like a god to mankind. And then finally, he also has his humanity. He's considered more human than us by Batman. Okay, his humanity. That's why he's approaching Earth. Okay. And so you see those same metaphors here, where, again, Kal-El passes the moon, which is reflecting the sun. Very important. It's reflecting the sun. And then he approaches Earth right there. And this is the ship right there. So I thought this was really cool to see those parallels. And then finally, we see that Superman now, as he approaches Earth, he's going to enter into the atmosphere. And let me zoom in a little bit more here. Just a little bit more. Zoom out again. Back in. Give me some sharp picture, man. Give me sharper picture. That's as sharp as you get. Okay, fine. Whatever. So here he is entering the Earth's atmosphere in Superman 1978. Here is him here. There's the sun over the horizon, the Earth here. This is nighttime on the Earth. And he's entering the atmosphere there. As he breaks through the Earth's atmosphere, you see the ship kind of crumble backwards here. And here you see it's, again, entering the atmosphere. You see the smoke and the heat because of the heat that's coming. But notice that the light is white in both cases, showing how bright the heat is. That is when... this is another way of talking about baptism. Another baptism here, where is it dipping this time into the Earth's atmosphere and dipping into humanity. When Jesus became a man, or when Jesus became a human, took on a human form, he entered into the womb in which he was in a fluid, amniotic fluid. And this is a baptism into mankind, baptism into earth. So there are many kinds of baptism. And then Jesus came out of earth and he went up into heaven. All right. So this is Kal-El coming from heaven here, coming into the earth. And of course, he looks white. There's a white light radiating around him because he's not of this world and he has to enter the atmosphere, which is very hot. And then you see him cutting through the clouds. This depicts heaven. Where see him coming from the clouds shows that he's above the earth. And then you see this little ship doing the same thing here, but it's nighttime here, showing that the world is dark and he has to bring the light to the dark world. And then here again, cutting through the clouds on a bright sunny day, you see the Kent farm somewhere down there, and similarly here. And so I just wanted to point out these parallels and some of the deeper meaning behind them. I will not show you the video because that will lead to some problems with copyright. So I'm going to just get out of this now and get back to you guys right at this moment. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that little piece right there. And apparently it's not going to be known to me. Not getting video right now. It's just stupid, but it is what it is. There you go. I got back my video. So if you guys want to talk in the chat section, please talk in the chat section. I have some other things to talk about on the DCEU, but I just wanted to break that down, especially with Man of Steel and Superman 1978. And of course, some of these things are the general Superman story, but the details and how it's depicted is very interesting by the directors. And so that's why I wanted to share that with you guys. Let's see what you guys have to say. R2 Limited, letting you know I'm here. Need to leave for work in a few hours, playing Kingdom Hearts while listening to you. All right, man. So let me just put the link in here. If you want to join the chat section, please, by all means, have fun. Let's do that. Let's have a conversation. I'm sorry about what happened the last time, R2, where we just kind of cut off. But what happened was my computer just cut off all of a sudden. I think it was overheated or something. And the last time also when you guys jumped on, oh, whoops, that's the wrong thing. When you guys jumped on, the internet cut off on me. So we had to, I had a number of different things that was going on here. Let me just close this down so I don't get confused. Okay. Yeah, right. So let me get you the link. I'm going to keep it for a brief second and then I'm going to remove it. All right. Because I don't want people who are not supposed to be on here on here. So here you go. Booyah. Okay. I'll give you a couple seconds to get on, and then booyah, I gotta remove it. Don't forget, you can always comment in the comment section here and in the link section as well. So far we're up and working. We're live. Have you gotten the stuff? Have you got the stuff, R2? Yes, I hear you now.
Yep.
Awesome, man. What's up? I know you have to go to work.
No, like I said, playing.
Aha, I see it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, man. All right. So what do you think? Did you know that Man of Steel was that closely related to Superman 1978? I have a ton of other things to show you guys, but it's just that it's in video form instead of in what I just showed you, memes. I'm sorry, but it's converting to memes takes so long to do.
Yeah, pretty sure it was based on both movies, because most likely they were, Man of Steel was supposed to be the modern retelling slash remake of that movie. The change from the Superman to Man of Steel, which was pretty much what keeps them separate in that way. And both movies in a way have the same antagonist in General Zod, or actually in the when Richard somewhere where I've got read and learned that when Richard Donner was first making the movie, it was that Superman 1 and Superman 2 were originally supposed to be one movie, and it was cut into two movies, and they made who was the guy? Richard Lester, the other guy directed the second movie.
Right, exactly. The other thing is there's a lot of deleted scenes also that didn't make the cut for the theatrical release. So there are actually some deleted scenes, and I actually in some video, I think it was a video before, I actually showed from a deleted scene how Jor-El actually was doing something illegal by having Kal-El leave Krypton. In fact, it was the council actually said that in the Donner cut that he was committing an act of treason. And if you do remember, General Zod himself in Man of Steel actually said this very same thing. He said, what did he say? He said, heresy, destroy it. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
And actually, and now that I think about it, you bring it up already, or the way how Superman 1978 starts with the trial of Zod, Ursa, and Nun.
Right.
Man of Steel actually shows reasoning why they were on trial in the first place.
Right.
Well, except that Jor-El survived that coup.
Right. Yeah, you actually see both of them die. Jor-El and Laura Van, they die on Krypton. And it's actually a longer sequence when Jor-El and Laura Van die. It's much more longer, and Krypton, it was in a dome, pretty much like how Krypton on the sci-fi is. It was actually not Krypton, sorry, but the city, whatever city it was, they never said what the name of the city was, but the city was in a dome. It was a dome. So Krypton really was having problems. And, you know, when you go back and watch Superman 1978 now, you can really appreciate it a lot more, seeing that we have Krypton now and we have also Man of Steel to look at. You can really appreciate it because there's some things that Donner wanted to put in there that got kind of underplayed. Anyway, what are you playing, man? This is a side note.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts. What is that?
It's a JRPG. It's basically Square Enix and Disney made together. It has Final Fantasy and Disney characters. For example, the character I'm playing is an original character named Sora, and he's traveling with Donald Duck and Goofy. We're currently in Olympus Coliseum, which is a movie based on Hercules.
It's funny. You like crossover stuff, I realize. You like a lot of crossover stuff.
Yeah, this game was also originally when I got the PS2 in 2002, or like when I was 10 years old on the fourth grade. This was the first PS2 game I had.
Nice.
Yesterday, when I was going through PlayStation Network, I saw the full bundle of games from full final mixes and the mixes of them on sale. It was 34 euros and something cents. And it had with the first game, the game after that, the second game, and the prequel, and the two handheld games as movies.
Pretty cool.
Also, yeah, the third game is supposed to come out this year. It's refreshing to go through this before release.
Here's a relevant question that I think you would appreciate. If you had to do a crossover movie with any one of the franchises in the comic book universe, we're talking Transformers, Power Rangers, we're talking Marvel, Fox, or MCU and DCEU, which crossover would you do, and how soon would you do a crossover movie, and what characters would you have involved in that crossover movie now? Or if you had to write a script for a crossover movie, what kind of characters would you want in that crossover movie?
It would probably be about something of a jumping point, like you know the web, you know my fanfiction.net profile and the stories I have there. It would probably be the Nolan trilogies, the Dark Knight Rises third act with Doctor Who, which was the first story I wrote.
Right.
Or it could be the Traveler Among Wizards, which is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows with man.
What, but remember, I'm talking comic book characters, not just like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. We want to stay with comic book characters. So go ahead.
Okay. It could be also if we're talking about the anime and manga comic characters. That the correct story I'm writing right now.
You can use Conan. Conan's a comic book character, so you can use Conan there if you want. So if you want Wonder Woman and Conan or whatever, just what crossover would you use? Transformers and Avengers, or let me hear what kind of mix you would put down. I need got to be something that would sell. People would be interested in seeing it. Let me hear what kind of combination would you put together?
Well,
think about it, because it's something that really can make you. It makes us think. You know, for a minute, I know what I would want, but I want to hear what you would want first. It's got to be a character, first of all, everybody's aware of and they've seen recently, I would think. It could get really interesting and really fast. Really. Because all you have to think about, here's the hint to what I think. This is where I'm going. I would go with one of the hottest characters right now and that recently showed in cinema. And I would put something, I wouldn't do an extensive crossover, but I would put another character that people would want to see with that character. So however you want to do that is fine. But that's what I would do. And I know people are itching to see a certain character right now. So let me see what you would do. How would you do that? Just think of the most recent character and how successful that character is, and probably pair that character up with some other character from some other universe. There's some hot ones I could think of.
If I would do something like a DC Marvel thing.
It doesn't have to be DC and Marvel. It could be any.
Yeah, if it was, I would probably need someone to write it with to balance what I know and what I don't know.
Right. Because I'm thinking, if you're going to go tech-wise, it would be fun to put the Transformers, a Transformer of some kind. I would think Bumblebee. I would match up Bumblebee with an Iron Man and War Machine and Cyborg. I would just match up all the technos, and that would just be hell.
That would probably work. It just, you know, Bat in the Sun channel,
right?
In YouTube and Facebook, didn't they recently, or was it about a couple of months or a year ago, do an Iron Man versus Optimus Prime?
That would be awesome. That would be crazy.
They animated a fight like that.
You know, and it doesn't have to be a versus film because
it's also something I don't like. I also like because about those videos is because those versus fights, they're created as a battles to the death.
Right.
And
I don't think
the versus go on, but the execution where it leads to, that's pretty.
The only problem with that is Optimus Prime pretty much can't die. It's very hard to kill Optimus Prime. Like it's very, because he's a machine. It seems that Cyborg's basically unkillable, and Iron Man is killable. So it's kind of it's not fair to really go to the death, because even when you think it's to the death, you can always piece back together Optimus Prime, and then I know he's a creature, but still, it's very difficult to kill those creatures. You know what I mean? Very difficult. Iron Man's a human being, so you know, if you get past his suit, it's over. Okay, yeah. So I don't think it's a fair. You know, it's another interesting combination, and they're already doing it. They have Venom out there, right? A Venom movie's coming up, so yeah. I would couple Venom with, say, for instance, his analog, which would be Virus, or not Virus, Parasite from the DC.
Oh yeah, Parasite, yeah. That would actually work. And Parasite, because Parasite would lead whatever the strain that Venom has, and
right, and then you could couple that up with either X-Force, which would have Deadpool in it, or you could couple it up with the new not Generation X, is it? The new Mystique. Mystique. The young generation of X-Men, but with Mystique in there. Because Mystique, again, she's kind of like a parasite. She kind of adopts different forms. And so just to have all three of them in one movie, and some of them bad, some of them good, some of them playing both sides, would just be fun to me. You know, and you look at Catwoman, and you look at Black Cat, you look at Catwoman, Black Cat, and what's her name? Catwoman, Black Cat, and I forgot her name. Crap, I can't remember her name. But just to have a like how you do the different variations of Batman, I would do all the different variations of these type of characters, whether they're good guys or bad guys or whatever. I would do variations of them. You know, you getting through with the game. So that's one of the things I would love to see on the screen, just these variations of the same grade of character and how they differ from one another. For instance, when you look at say, for instance, a Wolverine like character would be I guess Wolverine with the Hulk, you know, Wolverine, the Hulk, and I don't know what's the Wolverine like character for, say, DC.
Lobo.
What character would that?
There's the argument that Deadpool was created as a ripoff of Deathstroke, and
Spider-Man.
Lobo was created as a ripoff from Wolverine.
Okay, so you got Lobo. So you throw in Lobo there, and you just have that craziness going on. And I'm just saying that's the fun of just having three of almost the same. You know, you have these little splinters off of it. And since they're from different universes, it really is going to be a lot of fun because they're like, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? You know, and then they get to know each other, and then you can go off from that and have some fun with it. So that's my thing on that. And I would love to see a crossover. I would love to see a crossover. I know that we're still a ways away from crossovers, but I would love to see a crossover on the screen. That would be great.
Actually, 10 years ago, before when I started some fanfic about by drawing my own comics, they were not a very quality work done at that point. But there was the stories weren't actually very good either. So and you remember the Disney Channel cartoon Kim Possible?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched as my sister watched it, and at that point I probably thought pretty lame. That was that was a long time ago. I had that kind of mindset. I appreciate what it was and was now much better. And some people also appreciate it as much as now as they did then. I did a 6-part kind of miniseries that had a really an immature-ish plot with Kim Possible and a version of the Batman in comics at that point. It had 2 first issues where something about some engine stolen. The female villain in Kim Possible, she stole some engine from Wayne Enterprise in Gotham City. Batman and Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, followed where Kim Possible was set in, and there happened some really crazy thing. Then we got some bad villains to show up in it, and then the Joker showed up in the 3rd part, and that when they went about into Gotham one point. Then there was for some reason they had a mother box that transported them into South Park of all things.
Okay.
Then there was some other things where things went crazy, and two parties on Batman's side and the Impossible side were villainized against each other, so that basically the latter quarter was then Impossible and Runway and Unstoppable fighting against. They had uncovered Batman's secret identity at that point, but at that point he was also had run across Superman and Wonder Woman, who all three fought them together at that point. And that was really.
That's interesting, though. It's some interesting stuff you did.
And at that same time when I was doing it, the Batman RAP by Grant Morrison had come out, and Batman had been temporarily killed off in the comics. Well, not really killed off. It was that he went lost in time, and everyone thought he was dead because of a clone was found and thought it was his body. So I pretty much ended the fifth part with Batman dying because while trying to talk Impossible out of the story to kill him, and eventually something else, and he eventually died. She was taken in, and for some stupid reason, she was to be executed for Batman's death. And oh my god, that was just thinking back to that plot makes me think, what the hell was I even thinking?
No, it's your imagination. Your imagination was going on, and that's cool. That's all right.
Then I need a sequel to that. It's also drawing some kind of pictures collage that I plastered on my walls as a. That then had the entire DC universe, or most of the DC universe, or from that time, with the Army of Darkness or the Evil Dead series. You know, Bruce Campbell's character Ash Williams. It followed it was my kind of also kind of sequel to Marvel Zombies versus Army of Darkness, where Ash Williams had gotten into the Marvel Zombies universe, where everything went back, where he saw all the Marvel superheroes from Avengers, Spider-Man, and X-Men all turned into zombies and devoured everyone in their world.
Damn.
And he escaped to a Marvel Werewolf universe, was barely saved from there with Batman and Supergirl, and then when they got to DC universe, Final Crisis was going on, where everyone was under the influence of the anti-life equation.
Damn.
And eventually that
run. That's intense.
Yeah. I don't know if I have all them. I probably have all of those.
That's good though. That's good. That's good writing in the sense that you sort of took all of the most difficult stories in some of the universes and some of these alternate realities, and you sort of had this traveler go through it and somehow survive. Do you have anybody who had no superpowers whatsoever? Hey, but this is a question I gotta ask because it just dawned on me. I don't know how much of Krypton episode you've seen, but how is Adam Strange
watching them at one streaming site?
Okay.
I haven't seen this week's episodes. It wasn't.
But how is Adam Strange breathing air on Krypton? Just explain that to me.
I have no idea. So okay, maybe there is.
It makes no sense.
Maybe there is some kind of atmosphere or something about related to zeta beams that's helping him support himself in the heavier gravity and atmosphere.
Exactly.
It's probably something to do with the zeta beams and.
Yeah, but the zeta beams wasn't working. It wasn't working. Yeah. So how is he living? I mean, I was thinking maybe they forgot about that point from Man.
Probably.
Because that makes no sense. Krypton is supposed to be, I know they have their own little atmosphere inside the dome and stuff like that, so it's not as severe as outside, but still, he's supposed to be breathing their air, and they don't have the same sun, they don't have the same gravitational field. I'm just saying. But I know it's a TV series, and you have to suspend belief for a whole bunch of stuff, so I give it a pass, but honestly, man, they need to have thought about that. They didn't. I'm just saying. There are a bunch of other questions I have that to me make no sense, but it's okay. I guess it's a television series. And you said that there was you spoke about the last time we were talking, you spoke about this movie that you said was kind of like Gladiator, not really, but it's World War II, and we started to get some information. You playing a game, bro. You enjoy your game. Don't study me. But I'm gonna say,
it's fine. Fine. It's at that point where I have a tough boss and I need to go do grinding anyway.
Okay. Grinding. Okay. Well, there's only two things I gotta say though. One is, I know you have to go to work just now, so I don't want you to miss your work. But the second thing is,
it's about to be 6, and I need to be at work at 9. But eventually, I need to open the at least 30 minutes before I start charging people in there. So I have about 2.5 hours before I need to get there, or maybe 2 hours. I usually leave at 8.
Okay.
It's now 6. It's about to be 6.
Okay, cool. What I was gonna ask you is, if you you write a lot, right? You write a lot. Good. Okay. So if you were to take one of your works and make it into a movie, which one would you use that could fit into a 2-hour, 30-minute format? Is any of your works something that could do that? Or you have too many parts, you have to condense it down into one thing, or what would you do? And do you only do comic book movies or sci-fi or whatever? You know, is that all you write, or you write actually also realism, or you're just into fantasy?
Kind of in between. There was that one. Some overarching themes that were in the first 3 stories that I wrote. They probably could have seen as 2-parter TV episodes.
Okay.
And the 4th one as well, that probably counts as a movie or 2 movies, because it was, well, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows featuring Superman. Then there's maybe the 5th after one which had the Justice League, the Doctor Who, and Adam West Batman. Had the 13 Bruce Wayne, 12 Bruce Waynes, and the young Gotham kid in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would probably be a short movie, maybe, but if it wouldn't have to explain the previous events and so on.
Okay.
Well, I also did. There have been about the follow-ups. And there's the one overarching that's been going on is a kind of like in the Batman IP that I have thrown the DCEU / Harry Potter universe's Batman out of that universe currently, so that they have Dick Grayson as Batman right now, and the Bruce Wayne Batman is being thrown in the multiverse and hyper time. There was a fantasy-based world which had humans and elves and dwarves and magic and warriors and so on. That's probably one version where it was. Then there was a semi-realistic. I wrote also one short story on Gotham where it was like the Return of Bruce Wayne issue number 5 from that miniseries. It was that where when Bruce Wayne was displaced in time, and he was jumping from one time period to another from the caveman era to the witch hunts era, pirates era, Wild West era, and then he was in Gotham right around the time when after his parents had been killed. That was kind of like a film noirish story that I wrote.
Right. So that's Batman through time, as you said before.
It was that story's purpose was to had it confined into that particular era and that particular setting, film noir setting. It was well, it has been spoiled already that it had him in it in the time when his parents had been killed as a grown man. But I had also wrote it in a way that he was amnesic, had lost his memory at the time. He had jumped in there from the fantasy story, and at the end of that fantasy story, he had been mortally wounded, and a witch or sorceress who wanted to learn information that he had known prior to his death did a something of a necromancy on him to learn what he had known and had known at the time of his death, and that also made caused a reaction in a foreign element that had caused him to jump universe in the first place. And it revived him and threw him into the other place. But he had lost his memories because of that thing. So the story was basically told from his point of view. That he was the narrator. He was narrating what was happening around him. He was trying to understand what was going on, and it was basically told from his point of view as an amnesic hardcore detective chump.
One thing I wanted to mention, you didn't see Infinity War, right? Yeah. Doctor Strange, isn't he able to move through time? Because he has the time stone, right?
Probably.
Right, so
or I don't know if that's
can he? Because if he could throw a spell, right, and they go through this circular arch thing. So
does it work like that, or
he can change location, and I think he can go through time.
I don't know if that's time. Some rules of time travel in fiction that I have come across or have learned about are that you can go back in time, but not as a corporal being. You go mostly like if you have been part of that era, you'll be like a specter or a ghost that can't.
Why I ask that is because he has the time stone. So how can you have the time stone? You can't go back in time. We saw Thanos go back in time. So my question is this. Why is it that Doctor Strange didn't just go back in time?
What convenience?
Yeah. Oh, you mean in storytelling? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, he could have done it while the vehicle he was in, he captured in, hurtling towards Titan. He could have done that. He could have carried everybody back in time, Iron Man and everybody. He was like, turn this machine around and head back to Earth. And I'm like, why do you have to do that? You have the time stone, so just use it, or do you have to see where you're going or something? I don't understand. But I was just thinking about that. But besides that, I noticed that there are a number of devices or people who can actually travel through time in both universes. Like you were talking about Batman being able to travel through time, and you gave him the ability to do so. Because
it's something like in the story where it was the Justice League, Adam West and Doctor Who. It was something like that. When those versions of Batman had been captured, he and two others, Adam West and Christian Bale's Batman, were able to escape. The two stood behind, and he left, and he managed to escape all the way to Doctor Who's and the Nolanverse shared universe, where the Justice League was also, and there it's something like that. The Doctor's TARDIS has something like a memory circuits or something that you can and something like you find coordinates from memories. So they took they basically took a cord and stuck it into his arm. It's created. It's basically like an old wound that a shrapnel was left in. It's basically like a piece of the Doctor's TARDIS. It became a piece of a time machine, a living time machine.
Right.
So that it blinks in and out, working and not working. It was dormant at one point, then it was corrupted. Then the corruption was. The fantasy story in which I wrote it, his wound was basically seen as another anchor. It was Dragon Age and Witcher story. So in Dragon Age Inquisition, there was the main character you play as is called the Inquisitor, who has the anchor, which is used to seal breaches in the fabric of the veil, or time and space. So if there's
So you
something
have
like that, and that was green, and the one Batman had was red. So basically, they saw it as another anchor, which actually was the wound, and that wound was purging the corruption out of it, and that was they saw it, that it was purged during the story.
So you're talking from Doctor Who, but what I'm saying is, okay, take for instance the DCEU. There's a number of ways to travel.
Yeah, there is.
There's a number. We saw Doctor Strange do it. We saw General Zod do it. We know that you can use the Phantom Zone to somehow the Phantom Zone to travel through time, and we know the Flash can travel through time, right?
Yeah.
There's all these guys that can travel through time, and then we know because of the multiverses and stuff, there's other methods of being able to travel through time. We have boom tubes and all of that stuff. So my question is, with all of these devices, how do you that's just DC alone. Marvel has a whole bunch. You just talked about Doctor Who and some of the ways of how to use time machines. We know about in sci-fi. We know about what's the name of that thing? Back to the Future, where they use a car, the DeLorean. Right there, you go. And there's many other sci-fi movies where they talk about time travel. And may I say, even in our reality today, we've heard lots of stories about time travel and people going to the future, some people going to the past. It's not verifiable, but there's these stories about it. So what do you think about if you're going to use a crossover again, if you're going to do a crossover movie where you're using time travel? We know Doctor Strange uses time travel. We know about the Time Stone, but he's not the only guy that used time travel. We had in the MCU, I think there's another event where there was time travel, if I'm not mistaken. Trying to remember where actually some people used time travel. Where was it? It wasn't just Doctor Strange. There was something before that. Evidence of multiverse. You remember? Was it Loki? Was it Loki?
I don't know if that was that. I haven't watched Doctor Strange's movie either, but some reports and articles are trying to explain its stories and remind me that it might have been in there.
Oh, well, in Doctor Strange, we know that the god that he faced up against, Doctor Strange kept on looping time. So the god would kill Doctor Strange and he would come back because he could keep on. He put time in a loop. So he was able to come back and the guy would kill him until the guy was tired of seeing him. And then he granted him the wish. That was in Doctor Strange, right?
Yeah.
So Doctor Strange can manipulate time. So that was Doctor Strange. But there was another place in the MCU where I saw time manipulation. I'm trying to remember where I saw it, where somebody time traveled. They actually time traveled. I can't remember where it was. It wasn't Loki. It's not Asgard, where they travel from one place to the other. Like they have something kind of like a boom tube where they can go from Asgard to wherever. It was where somebody travels through time. I'm trying to remember what it was. Where was it? I can't remember. But it's there. It's in the MCU. So there's multiple ways of traveling through time there. Of course, we've seen time slow down and all that other stuff. But traveling through time particularly is what I was looking at. And let me ask you this. Do you think that all of these sci-fi movies, if they are foreshadowing people traveling through time eventually, if they haven't started doing that already? Because a lot of these things have a level of truth to them. So what do you think? You think it's just fantasy and it's not possible, or it is possible to travel through time?
Well, it might be possible, but we might not actually know if it is real. Some course paradoxes that when it comes to time travel, I know are the predestination paradoxes, where you go back in time to try to change something, but instead of changing, you just solidify it. That thing that you're trying to change happened because you went there and made it happen, really, whether you wanted it or not. That's one thing. But there's also the thing that when you go back in time and change something, you don't change the past. You create an alternate timeline where that happened. That's what
right.
also can happen. And then there's the bootstrap paradox, or the grandfather paradox, that you change something, like go back in time, kill your grandparents, and you won't be born, but you still went back in time. So it's just some loop just keeps existing.
You're looping it, yeah. Right. And they say if you meet yourself, that could be a problem. If you go back in time and try and meet yourself, that actually affects.
It's something like it's been explained in a kind of strange ways in most fictions that at which point you go back in time and meet yourself, whether you're young and don't understand it something, or is it recently a version that that knows about time travel and would somehow expect that did I create a time machine or something like that, for example, would work?
Let me ask you that. As you're talking about these theories, how does going forward in time now, going to the future, affect the future? Because you went to the future. It obviously will affect the future, because now people will know certain things they're not supposed to know. So going forward in time actually will change the timeline.
It could change the future in a way that if you go to the future or send something into the future, that you would be expecting it to appear where you send it. For example, in Pokemon, there's a psychic Pokemon known as the Future Sight.
Right.
The Future Sight works in a way that in a Pokemon battle, a psychic Pokemon uses the move known as the psychic attack, and when the moves are usually Pokemon is turn-based action. The Future Sight sends there's a move that should appear a few moves later that the opponent would get stuck attacked with it no matter what when the attack comes. It's avoidable if the battle ends before those turns happen. But even if you beat the Pokemon that use the Future Sight attack, the attack is still coming, and it's going to come on the one who was opponent at that point, or the next Pokemon that sent as its place.
And then the other strange thing is, if you can get into the future, that affects the future, because the future now knows about the past, and they will try to access the past. They will try to go back into their past, which would be your present, to try and influence that so they can influence the future. So if you want to impact the future, now they will want to come back.
Yeah, they would. Then the future is probably not what and to everyone's liking. So of course they would probably, if they know that someone came from that point of time or before that point of time where everything went how it is, and they know that someone came from there, they want to go with them back and then change that future. Yeah, it's reasonable.
Yeah, and then they will also have the technology to go back into the past, which is better than the technology from the past. So all of those things I was thinking about. So no matter which direction in time you go, it's going to affect something. In the end, I would think. And then the strange thing about it is we don't know if our reality here. If somebody went and time traveled into the past, it would obviously affect our reality. We would not be aware of that.
Yeah, we wouldn't, because the change would affect as well, and it would be normal.
There you go. So that's another weird thing that time travel affords, because it's only the person who's traveling in time who may or may not, like you said, Batman had amnesia, but may or may not be aware of the change. Actually, so that's all interesting stuff, man. But I was just thinking about that, because a lot of things that we see in comic book movies or sci-fi, they eventually become realities. So I was just thinking, man, time travel. What will happen? Will they ban time travel when it's possible to time travel, or what will they actually do if they haven't done it already? If they haven't done time travel already, and some of these things where you can teleport to different places, teleportation. We know they can do it for sound files. So Are they teleporting right now? Are they teleporting people and things and stuff? And if we could get teleportation, that means we could go probably see other planets and places, maybe even other galaxies. What does that mean? You know, that's what I liked about Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four was basically, even though they called it a dud, I actually liked that they went to where did they go? Mars, wasn't it Mars? What planet were they on?
It was something original, and something in their original version. Originally, they're going to the negative zone.
Right, they just went to a place. They didn't know where it was, right?
Yeah, but it was implied. I didn't watch that movie. I have seen mostly the honest trailers, cinemas, and other reviews, and they claimed it. They have gone on record to claim that it was the negative zone.
It was what?
The negative zone. It's something from the Marvel comics.
Okay. The negative zone. It was pretty cool though. I actually liked most of the movie. I enjoyed most of the movie Fantastic Four because of the sci-fi aspects of it and how they grounded the movie. But there were certain aspects of it where they see the tone of the movie shifted. It moved from they were really trying to make the movie a realistic, reality-based movie. It wasn't just Fantastic Four fantasy. It was, and then they just in midway in the movie switched it into fantasy and made it kind of. And the problem with it was there was graphic violence, there was blood, and then they wanted it to be for kids, kind of like it was. They at the end they kind of cupped out and made it a kiddie flick. You could tell there was two different directors directing that thing, man. And it was schizo. And so the ending was terrible. I mean, it was. I loved the last line of the Fantastic Four. It was really cool how they ended it up. But in between that was just that ending, that third act was just a mess, bro. You know, they should have just committed to keeping it realistic and just go all the way. And, you know, if there was blood or whatever, and it was PG-13 already, just let it be. But they kind of just went, and then somebody, maybe the studio or whatever, decided, no, we want a kiddie flick, and they just ended up just towards the end. I would say 2/3 of that movie was good, and then towards the end, that last third, they screwed it over, man. They screwed the movie over royally. Like they just kind of backed out of the movie, and I was like, why did you do that? The movie was pretty good, you know. I liked it. It was different and everything, you know. It appealed to different level. It was very intelligent. And then they just shut that to hell and just said, okay, kiddie flick. I don't know what happened to Sony. I think it was Sony was responsible for that, or whoever. I think it was Fox. Sony, right? Was it Fox? Sony? Who's responsible for Fantastic Four? Fox or Sony?
Fox had the rights.
Fox, man. They screwed that over, man. I don't know why they fired that director. They should have just let him do his thing. You know, whether they agreed with it or not, ride or die with the guy. But they backed out, and then this other director came in and just you can't have a good movie after that.
Another director on it. Let me do a little.
There were two directors on that movie. The first director was kicked off.
Yeah,
and he had done a lot.
It's the Fan Force we're talking about.
Yeah, so that's the problem with the
film. It was.
It's not a bad movie per se, even though people give it a bad rep. It's not really a bad movie. They were trying, but the original direction was to make it sort of realistic. Yeah. It was supposed to be realistic, and then they just backed out of it. Yep.
That's they didn't that it's.
But it's not necessarily as bad as people make it out to be. I definitely enjoyed it for the most part, and the different way how they took their take on
before the film's release, several sources had reported that the multiple disagreements between 20th Century Fox and Trank during the production, after being unsatisfied with Trank's original cut, Fox ordered their own changes to the film without Trank's supervision, changing and omitting certain major plot points from Trank's vision. Many other sources claimed that there was erratic behavior from Trank on the set of the film, which resulted in Fox's negative treatment of Trank.
Yeah.
So basically,
Like I told you, it was a good and Michael J.
Yeah, they didn't change the directors. They just basically throw the director out and in a large group.
There was another director on board, but it was
Yeah,
just
that one I just read.
yeah.
They didn't mention any other directors. They didn't weed out. They didn't weed out that movie.
They really messed that movie over, man. And you know what you find is that especially when you change directors in a movie, it's not necessarily the best thing. And especially in the studio, they go. Why would you go with a director for the majority of the principal photography, and then you just go and switch up with another director? It's one of the worst things you can do. You know. Hold on a second. I just have to step out for a minute. You know what? Let me wrap this up right here and now. So,
Yeah.
man, it's a blessing to have you, R2. I enjoyed this discussion once again. And tune in for some other spontaneous streams. I hope you enjoy your day and the workplace. And for those people who don't know, you can check out R2's crossover stories.
At fanfiction.net under the pen name of Suomalainen 92. Suomalainen written as in the every other letter is written with caps lock.
Right. So you can also type it out R2 in the comment section below so that they can see.
I'll write my pen name so that and have it so here.
Sure. So that they can check it out, because crossover comics are pretty interesting as well, folks. If you haven't read any crossover comics, you should. But you can also check out all of the DC comics. We have to go into some DC comics too. I haven't really done much DC, guys. But let's see if we can see it. Go ahead.
Suomalainen 92. Every other letter is big and every other is small.
That's SUOME. LAIA.
SUOMALAINEN 92.
Try again. Just do it one more time. Just adjust so we could see it. We're not seeing it. We didn't see it that time. It was too bright. Do it again. There you go. Go ahead.
INE92.
Great.
That's my pen name at fanfiction.net.
Fanfiction.net, folks. All right, you guys have a great one. Have a good evening, R2.
Yep.